Guatemala, and she also takes students to San Lucas, but she herself worked at a school. And hopefully we're going to spend a day at the school where she taught. We're going to go into and it's a girls' school, we're going to go into the church, and we're going to see all the paintings that Sister Donna did on the walls, just amazing. So she's an artist, a musician, a singer, and I've met Sister Donna about maybe 3 years now, because we both work for Network.
Actually, we met in Guatemala, you forget. You had, it was in December, and you brought a group down, and I did.
And we didn't know each other.
No.
And then we met at Network, which is the Catholic Social Justice Lobby that Sister Simone Campbell runs, and she was a big speaker here. She was the Ivy Young Willis speaker here last year. And she's the person who did the Nuns on the Bus, the political movement of fighting for poor people in the United States. So we're both on the board of Network, so we get to spend like 6 days each year together on board meetings.
And then conference calls.
Conference
Every
calls
Friday,
and
once a month on Friday, this Friday.
going out to Mexican restaurants and having big Mexican drinks and all sorts of things down in DC. And she has to like drive me home because I'm after 2 ounces. Forget. And so Sister Donna came all the way from Marywood in Scranton and drove down here. It's about like a 3-hour drive, and then she's going to drive back just to have the opportunity to talk to people about her experience and to give us some really great background on things that Raquel and I can't, because we've only been there for such a short amount of time, but Sister Donna's been there so many years. And it's really so thankful for you to give up this huge day to.
Not giving up. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you. Do you want to add to the introduction of like your background a little bit and like what order you belong to?
Maybe as the computer's coming around. Actually, this year, 2015, actually last year, 2014, it's hard to believe, but it's been 20 years that not that I first went to Guatemala, because I went about 23 years ago for a language program, and I really fell in love with the country. I went for a summer, and I knew that I would be back, and so my religious congregation are the Sister Servants of the Immaculate Heart of Mary from Scranton. You may be familiar if you're from the area of the Philadelphia sisters, or cousins. But
So like Immaculata University.
Immaculata University, right. Our university is Marywood University in Scranton, and our sisters, actually this year, we just celebrated 50 years in Peru. But I did not feel a call to be in Peru. I felt a very strong call to be in Guatemala, and so 20 years ago I got permission to go for a year with an organization that was called the Christian Foundation for Children in Aging. And I knew nothing about Guatemala except this very strong call to be there. And they placed me in a town called Chichicastenango with the Dominicas de la Anunciata, a group of Dominican sisters who are native Guatemalans, and some from Spain, some from the Central American countries. And 1 year led to, on and off, 12 years. And when I came back in 2007, I was asked to take on the ministry of the Director of Justice and Peace for my congregation. And so part of that, I'm very blessed to be able to use Guatemala, or to continue the relationship with Guatemala by taking university students, very much like Dr. Zurich and Dr. Green do, as well as our IHM sisters, and really keeping that connection, that relationship going. So I come probably from a little different point of view in that I spent more time actually living with the people, and I go back 3 times a year. And so what we do today, I don't want to be the only one talking, so please, as you know, when we actually begin, please feel free at any point to stop.
Did you press play?
Yeah, we got it. Yeah.
But I'm going to come from a point of view really of, from everything that you've done. Dr. Zurich sent me in a few short weeks. You have done tons. And I was looking over some of the things you needed to read and look at and everything. So I'm going to try to take some of the background of what you've done, especially with the integral human development piece, and kind of tie that into the Maya cosmovision, the belief, really the worldview of the people there. And I think it may makes some sense, I hope. Makes sense to me, I hope I can get that to you. As we're getting ready, why don't you tell me your names? My name is Sister Donna.
I'm Caitlin.
Caitlin?
Mia.
Mia?
I'm Joey.
Joey?
Amy.
Erica. Sam.
Natasha. Natasha.
Natasha?
Matt.
And you're on the board, right?
Yeah.
I'm on the board?
Right there.
Oh, I'm on the board.
Okay.
Yeah.
Becky?
Cassie.
Yes. Yeah.
Jared.
Jerry.
So in Guatemala, they call her, not Dr. Green, but Raquel, or Madre Raquel,
Madre Raquel.
Yeah.
Oh.
and they call me JC.
JC,
Yes.
okay, very good. Very good. Start?
Yep.
You know what, I need to,
Oh, I'm sorry.
really how I'd like to start, but you please stop me at any time. Okay, if you have questions, if you have comments, you wanna make your comments are probably more important than my comments and reflections, or, so please, we wanna make this an interactive kind of thing. What I'd like to do before we actually start, we can call this a reflection, a prayer. I want to play a song, it's called Holy Now. And I want to show some slides. Really, most of the slides are from Guatemala, so you'll get some visual images. But when I was looking over what you've done so far, especially what CRS, I always want to say CSR, what CRS has spoken about human development and integral human development, that sense of oneness and that sense of the dignity and the holiness of not only people, but everything, the land, the people. I want to begin with, it's just maybe about 3 minutes. I think the images will speak to the words. The song is Holy Now, and it really takes the concept of holy from maybe what we traditionally look at as holy inside church walls into everything, the dignity of not only human life, but all of life. And I've used images of Guatemala in this. So maybe we can start this as kind of our opening prayer. And then I have a lot of images, but I want to talk a little bit as we continue. And then, first of all, if you have comments or questions or reflections on what you see. But I want to kind of use this ambiance as the basis of what I'd like to share, and hopefully what you'd like to share back. Okay?
It is called,
It is called, I have it, it is called, okay, Married with Cabrini, go on to Married with Cabrini. Okay, you could either do the PowerPoint or the do you need the lights turned off even? Okay, so on mine.
you just press like the space bar or the down key.
Okay, so let's begin this song called Holy Now.
If you stop, I'll plug this in.
Oh, excellent.
Whenever we do anything together, she always does the artistic thing.
And Jerry helps me with all the technical stuff.
Fluffing things around, so this should work.
Right, and so, oh, that's perfect.
Holy water wasn't rare at best, barely with my fingertips. Now I have to hold my breath, like swimming in the sea of it. Used to be a world half there, heaven's second rate hand me down. I walk the river there, 'cause everything is holding now. Questioning China's face, say it's not a testament. That'd be very hard to say. See another new morning come. Say it's not a sacrament. Figure that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, saw a little red-winged bird shining like a burning bush, singing like a scripture would. Made me wanna bow my head. I remember when church met up, how things have changed since then. Everything's moving now. Used to be a world half there, heaven's second rate hand me down. I walk into the river here, 'cause everything is whole.
No, just any place. It's smart. Oh, I forgot to note it.
You have an apple, I don't have an apple, so I. So everything is holy. Did you get the feel of that kind of opening prayer? Yes. I hope you noticed some of the pictures. I chose most of the, well, all of the pictures really were pictures from Guatemala, some scenes that you may see. Certainly the people, the earth, people, the planet. And as I was looking over what you've been studying on the last, 4 or 5 weeks, it seems to me that the overriding theme is about really the holiness, the dignity of everything, of people to people, of relationship. I was reading over what CRS, I was going to say CSR, with CRS and that integral human development, and that whole idea of, when we walk on someone's sacred ground, we don't go with an attitude that I know what's best for you, but we go with this attitude of reverence and, meeting people in relationship where they are and asking the people, forming a relationship first, and asking the people, what they think, and then working together. That whole idea of community, of connection. What I'd like to do is, in this kind of short presentation, and again, feel free to stop, to ask questions, if you want to save your questions to the end, reflections, comments, whatever. What I have set up here is really part of what we're going to see in bigger form on the PowerPoint. What is here is a wheel. It's a weaving. Do we have any artists in here? They're all journalism majors? No? Not everybody? This is a weaving, and especially in San Lucas, and if you do go to Chichi, you will see weavings all over, but this is a huipil, a woman's blouse. It happens to be filled in, but it's a woman's blouse from Chichicastenango, and when you lay it out, it forms a cross, and it really tells the story of the Mayan people and their worldview. And before we really step on someone else's holy ground, someone else's home, I think it helps if we can understand a little bit about the beliefs of the people. Sometimes we may have different beliefs, but if we could kind of get into their souls a little bit, into their hearts, then it helps us to form relationships with them as we step into their holy ground. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this via the PowerPoint. Okay. Last year we did light candles in the end to end the class as a prayer, but Dr. Zarek is very anxious about. Well, I didn't bring matches this time.
No smokers here.
For the smoke alarms, but okay, maybe in the end, because we're going to have like just a little end blessing for you as well. Okay. Again, stop me if you would like to stop me. Guatemala, it's called often the land of eternal spring and the land of eternal tyranny. It's kind of a paradox. And we're going to take a look at some of those things. I'm sure you have. You already saw Rigoberta Menchu's, when the mountains tremble. I'm sure you've seen, you've seen the horrors of what has happened. And I'm sure you've seen, and if you haven't, you will see some of the immense beauty as well. It's a land of paradox. The land of eternal springtime, eternal tyranny. CSR talks about relationship, and I see you have a great sign there. Remember, don't get lost in the weeds, the big picture. I just want to start this by the big picture, coming down from the big picture to the little picture, and then going back to the big picture again. Okay? It's all connected. I loved when I saw that sign, don't get lost in the weeds. If we look at, a flat map of the world, I don't need to tell you where Guatemala is, but sometimes to see where it is in relationship to the bigger world helps. I don't need to tell you where it is. We have the US of A, Mexico, and Guatemala, of course, is the first country below Mexico. I'm always amazed, because when I show my students, it's like, oh, I didn't realize it was there. This little country just kind of stuck in the end of this huge Mexico and the huge US of A and huge Canada. And as you can see, all the other countries in Central America around it. And then zooming in even farther, you will be landing in Guatemala City, which is in the, get my directions right, southwest part of the country. Okay, and then you'll be going toward Lake Atitlan, which is right over here, and then around Panahacheles, Lake Atitlan, and then go into Chichicastenango. I think you're gonna be going there one of the days. Here's an even better picture. Okay, San Lucas, okay, this is a beautiful, beautiful Lake Atitlan, San Lucas, and Chichicastenango is up on the top there. You don't get to see the flower. Land of eternal springtime. The flowers, the flora, the fauna, beautiful, breathtaking. The fruits, the vegetables, the landscape, the water, the volcanoes around San Lucas, around Lake Atitlan.
That's what you'll see when you wake up in the morning, those volcanoes.
You see the volcanoes. These are some of the flowers just in Chichicastenango, you know, they're roses, they're lilies, they're all kind of wonderful, wonderful, breathtaking flowers, all throughout the western highlands of Guatemala. The land of eternal spring, it's reflected in the weavings of the women, in their clothing. In San Lucas, you'll see, well, in Chichi also, you'll see women all over weaving. One of the work sites in San Lucas, we're gonna look at those a little bit later, you'll see it's a women's center, and women come and they weave, and what they're weaving is they're weaving their blouses. Okay, they're weaving things for tables, but mostly they're weaving their blouses, they make their own clothing. And the women, depending on the village that they're from, their huipil, 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 is different. And the huipil itself tells the story of their people. It tells of their relationship with nature, with each other, with the universe. Okay, it's all about connection. It's all about connection. It's all about connection. We want to take a look at how the Mayan people, there are really 23 different groups of indigenous Maya in Guatemala. Where we are in San Lucas are the Cachiquels. Okay, and people speak the language Cachiquel. In Chichicastenango, just an hour and a half away, the people speak Quiche. Okay, two separate languages. There are 23 indigenous Maya languages. Okay, so when we go down, we speak Spanish, and for some people that's fine. Spanish is the, quote, official language, but the 23 indigenous languages, they're just beginning to recognize them nationally through laws. For many, many years, they weren't even considered languages, they were considered little dialects. But these 23 languages are beginning to be accepted, and more and more schools are becoming, at least private schools, bilingual, and not Spanish and English, Spanish and the native language. But the Mayan people, they see things in relationship to each other, their way of looking at the world. Okay, the Cachiquels, the Quiches, all of the 23 groups, their way of seeing the world is really connected. Sometimes in our world, in the US of A, sometimes we put things in silos and we don't see the connections. Okay? I think in your readings and in CRS, I think when they look at human development, I think they're trying to go back to that connection rather than put things in silos. Okay? The Mayan people, they see the big picture and everything is connected, starting with the universe. Going down to what we know, Mother Earth. If you look at what's on the table, okay, that's kind of a simple image, but what's on the table is a huipil. And if you look at it, and you can look at it later, when it's spread out, okay, it's a woman's blouse that goes over her head, but when it's spread out, it forms a cross. And the cross is really a symbol of the way the people see the world. They refer to God. Now, most Mayan people are Catholic or Roman Catholic, although there are a lot of different sects. But they also have what they call the Mayan religion. And no, it's not a pagan religion. Okay, it's a very, very integrated religion. They refer to God as heart of heaven and heart of earth. Now, how much more integrated can you get? Corazón del cielo, corazón de la tierra. Take a guess. What's another way of saying that? Heart of heaven, heart of earth. There was a picture in the prayer, and it was talking about the church, and there was a Mayan priest with his hands raised to the sky. What do you think? We just celebrated Valentine's Day. Heart of heaven, heart of earth. What's another way to say that? That maybe a way that we might say it here in the US of A. Take a guess.
I love heaven and earth.
Pardon me?
I love heaven and earth.
Love. Love with a capital L. Okay, to refer to God, heart, heart. Okay, a symbol of love. Love of heaven and earth. Okay, what a beautiful way to refer to God. Okay? Not so foreign. We can call God whatever we want to call God, but you know, even if we look in our own scriptures, God is love. What more can you say? We can call God Father, Mother, Sister, Brother, whatever. God is love. Heart of heaven, heart of earth. That's the beginning of the Maya cosmovision. That God isn't separate. God isn't somewhere up there. God is there, here. God is all over. So when they pray, and especially the Mayan priests, and I hope you get a chance to see, if you're in Chi-Chi, you may get a chance to see a ceremony. They refer to God as heart of heaven, heart of earth. When they pray, they set candles in the center, okay, of their prayer space. I'm using this weaving, because I love using weavings because they're made up of individual threads, thousands of individual threads. And the individual threads, what do you think they represent?
Connectivity.
Yeah, everything connected. Everything. And you start to pull one thread out, and what happens?
They'll get loose.
Yep. Start pulling one out, and sooner or later the whole thing's going to fall apart. What a wonderful image of what Catholic Relief Services is trying to do. This integrated way of looking at life. Okay, and the Mayan people have it through weavings. But when they pray, they use a blue candle and a green candle. The blue candle represents the heavens, and the green candle, the earth. Okay, heart of heaven, heart of earth. Okay, usually they place candles white, yellow, red, and black. Now, native indigenous peoples from the States do this also. Sometimes they switch the candles around. But the Mayan people use a white candle which faces the north, a yellow candle which faces the south, the red the east, and the dark colored candle the west. And they're symbolic. And so when they place those, the white candle symbolizes the heavens, a place of purity. Those things that we don't totally understand, like the spirit world. Okay? Goodness. The south, okay? Yellow for the Mayan people is very important because it represents corn, which is their basic staple. Okay, you'll see tortillas, you'll see tamalitos, you'll see all kinds of food, okay, from corn. That's very sacred to the Mayan people, is corn. Yellow represents the earth and their nourishment, okay, for them, which is corn. It represents all the plant life. The candle to the east, okay, red, okay, the color of sunrises, the color of blood. Okay, it symbolizes life. Okay, and the dark colored candle, black or a deep, deep, deep purple, represents the sunset, the west, but also that mystery of the unknown, of death. Okay, but to them, death isn't separated from life. Okay, sometimes we separate things. This is life here on earth, and this is death in the ground and whatever else. They see, the Mayan people, their vision is that everything is connected. It's so connected that when someone passes on, okay, the people continue to speak, to talk with, to speak. They go to the cemetery, but not only do they go to the cemetery, they have parties in the cemetery on All Saints' Day, because they believe that the spirit of their ancestors, when someone passes on, they're still very much with them. And really that's not very foreign to those of us who are Christians, and especially if you're a Catholic Christian, the communion of saints. You know, we learn it, but do we understand it? Probably not. For the Mayan people, without calling it that, they really, those who have passed on aren't somewhere else. Their spirits are really very much alive. So they see the world that way. Okay, and when they pray, they set up these candles. It's all connected. It's all connected. And it connects with Catholic social teaching. I think, Jerry, you were referring to as Christian social teaching. But Catholic social teaching has that same kind of connection also. Okay, it begins with a real respect and reverence for the sacredness of life. Okay, the sacredness of life, human life and all life. Okay, and I like to even go further than that. Life includes the life of the planet. It includes all of life. Okay, but in Catholic social teaching, we start with a reverence that everyone, every being has dignity, is sacred. And when we start with that reverence, okay, then we can begin to walk together. And we can begin to respect not only people and every other living being, but the planet that we live on. I know you've done all this, but Catholic social teaching, you know, it begins with that idea of the sacredness of life, and from there, working in community. From there, our rights and responsibilities as people who are individuals but also work in community. Okay, working together, not one being better than the other. Okay, working together. I have gifts, you have gifts. We both offer the best that we have. I don't come into your sacred territory and say, I'm gonna fix you. I have the answers. No, we come as in solidarity, we come as partners. Okay. When you get to San Lucas in particular, you're gonna be involved in a lot of work, okay, different projects. The dignity of work, the sacredness of work. It's not just about working, it's about relationship. I know you've done a lot on the option for the poor, okay, and what that means, and the care of creation. I just wanted to make that, we can go back to that if you want, but that connection, the Maya vision of the world, and it's not so different, although we're not always so aware of it, of what we teach. It's because sometimes we don't teach this, you know. We do in the university, but in our churches, a lot of times we don't. The Maya people, okay, this cycle, okay, of life, death, resurrection in a grain of corn. When you go in March, it won't be the planting season yet. In May is the planting season. The people plant their corn. But when they plant the corn, they don't just plant the corn any old way. They have ceremonies, they have planting ceremonies. And when they break open the soil, okay, they pray to God. And they ask forgiveness from God because they're breaking open Mother Earth to put in the seed. Okay, that will die, okay, that will begin to grow and become corn for their sustenance, for their food, and then they'll save some of that corn to plant the next year. So that continuous cycle of life, death, resurrection, okay, it's all connected. Life isn't there, death isn't there, but it's a continuous view of the world. Everything is connected. Stop me at any time if you have a comment. Even if it's not a question, if it's a comment, please stop me. Just some pictures of some folks that you might see. These are some Mayan priests, okay? Some Mayan priests. What they do when they pray, they usually go to the highest part of the village. It'd be a hill or a mountain. And they set up like a little altar and they pray. And they go, why do you think they go to the highest place they could find? Want to take a guess? And you're right, but just finish your statement. Closest to heaven and
It's still on Earth.
okay, it's where they believe heaven and earth touch. You know, remember, they don't see a distinction up. The highest place to them is where heaven and earth actually touch. And so they try to find in Chichicastenango, this is in Chichi, it's Pascualaba, it's called. It's the highest place in the town, and they believe that that's where heaven and earth touch. And so it's a very sacred place. And so when they pray, again, they refer to God as heart, the love of heaven and earth. And people come to ask for blessings. People come to pray. This is another Mayan priest. This is a basketball court at the school in Chichicastenango. We asked a Mayan priest to come and bless it when it was built. But there are also other Mayan priests, but a real deep reverence. Sometimes we use words like, when we think of priest, sometimes we only think of a Catholic priest. And so when we refer to the Mayan priest, sometimes people get a little nervous, like, ooh, that must be voodoo. You know, it is so holistic. It is so, we have a lot to learn. We have a lot to share ourselves, but we have a lot to learn from the way the indigenous Maya live as well. We bring the best of both, what we have and what we can give and what we can receive. Land of Eternal Spring. You're going to get to see women with all kinds of huipiles in San Lucas, and if you get a chance to see folks from other parts of Lake Atitlan, they travel a lot to sell their wares. You'll probably see quite a few. Even in the women's blouses is the story of their village. It speaks of relationship with the animals, with the volcanoes, with the rain, with the planets. That's a whole other chapter, but just so you can get a little look. Here are some of the huipiles from around the lake, Lake Atitlan, which you might see the women wearing. A connection with the flora, the fauna. That is a huipil from Chichicastenango. Okay, it's that cross, the center part, it's laid out, and when the woman would wear it, she would put that over her head, and then they just stitch it on the sides, and then it goes inside a piece of woven cloth, which is like a wraparound skirt. It's a piece of cloth, and then they tie it with a belt, a faja. Okay. But again, they're wearing something very symbolic, which speaks of the mountains and the volcanoes and everything they need. They depend on that interdependence. They depend on for life. Okay, the animals, the rain, the land, the stars. There are stars in there. There are 23 different indigenous groups in Guatemala, in the whole country. You're going to meet a couple of the different groups. Okay, even around the lake, there are different indigenous groups which you'll run into. Just to get a sense, two of the groups are from more Caribbean than Mayan. You probably won't run into any of them because they're more on the east coast by Belize. But just to get a look at some of the eternal spring that's
The
reflected.
women wear different types of things in their heads. Sometimes it's just a cloth, sometimes they seem to be like cushiony, you know. Can you explain? I haven't been able to figure those out.
Well, I left it in my car, actually. I have another bag. For instance, the headwear, usually women will wear headwear on special occasions because they're quite expensive to make. But around Lake Atitlan in Santiago, the women wear this. It's a long band, and it's wrapped around and around and around and around. If you notice, other ones have different kinds of, depending on what their villages are. What you may see sometimes, now these are headgear, part of their traditional costumes, and even the way, I don't know if a lot of the women know, but one of the professors in Chichi, he is an expert on, he can tell, I am always amazed when I sit with him. I feel like I'm sitting at the master's feet. But even the way they weave it around their hair is symbolic of the revolution and the rotation of the planets in the universe in the manner. But women, a lot of times you'll see like a little square thing on their head, which is called a sut, an S-U-T, and it's a very practical kind of thing. I left it in the car, but it's a piece of square material. And if they're not doing anything, like carrying anything, they'll fold it up in a square and put it on their head. And it serves as, if I have a basket of something, it serves as a cushion if I'm gonna walk. They have wonderful posture. I'm gonna carry it on my head. But it also serves if they have a baby. They take this suit, put the baby, I think I have some pictures, they wrap it around and they carry their baby in that piece of cloth. It also serves for market. When they go to market, they take, instead of carrying it like you might carry all your stuff, because they usually have a couple children with them, they'll put this little square thing on their head. They see whatever they want in the market. Okay, they'll put all their vegetables in, they'll wrap it up, it goes back on the head. So it's really a versatile, the suit, S-U-T. These, what you see right here, for the most part, they're the traditional wear of the villages. But the plain square suit, S-U-T, you'll see the women, they'll come to Mass, to the Catholic Church, and it also serves as, from the sun, as a protector from the sun. And some women, you know, I don't, you're too young to know this, but years ago, I'm almost too young to know this, but I think you had to wear, a woman couldn't go into a Catholic church without something. I just remember in grade school, if you didn't cover your head, we would put a tissue, it was kind of crazy when you think about it. You know, I remember we would be in the playground, and before, if you didn't have a hat or a mantilla, you'd get a Kleenex, and we'd walk in church with a Kleenex on our heads. And when I think about it, it was kind of silly, you know? But sometimes the women wear it in church as a sense, kind of that old time religion. I don't really know what the symbolism was back then. But anyway, the head coverings serve many purposes. Land of eternal spring. The men. Around Lake Atchison, a lot of the men will have traditional clothing, but it's more common that they'll wear Western clothing like jeans and shirts. But around Lake Atchison, you'll see, I love these kind of capris that the guys wear. I just think they're wonderful. If you look on the top, they're wonderful. They look so comfy, these capris. In Sololá, which is the town right next to, it's the whole department really, the men wear very colorful things, and they wear this outer, kind of it's a wool piece of cloth as well, and that serves against the cold, but it also serves as they're wiping their hands and everything. But so you'll see, sometimes you'll see men, but most of the time women. In other parts of Guatemala, men still do wear the traditional clothing.
And if Joey and Chris and Matt are in for it, will I want to even wear them?
I think that would
The
be
shorts,
great.
I'd wear those shorts.
Down for it.
No shame in my game.
Or every day.
I want to get to other parts, but these are some of the foods. I'm not sure if you'll get a chance to taste them, but everything made from corn as sacred food. The tortillas, regular corn, tamales, which on special occasions the people eat tamales, which is a mixture of corn and then chicken or and a certain kind of sauce on the inside. Tamalitos, which they'll sell on the street, which are, or chichitos, which really, San Lucas. Okay, I'm sure you've seen pictures already, but I want to zoom into San Lucas and some of the things happening and try to make a relationship to what you've been studying, and then Chichicastenango, and then get back to the big picture. I'm sure you already know San Lucas, the base of everything, the base is the home center is the parish. The lake is right down the street, but the parish is the home base. All the projects that were created by, and you've said Father Greg, they already know Father Greg. But the wonderful things that Father Greg learned, and when he died about 2 years ago, 3 years now?
3 years ago.
Well, that's hard to believe. You know, Father Greg went down as a young man, as a young priest, and you know, he learned as he lived there. And one of the things, the great lessons he learned is that you don't go and try to fix somebody, but you sit and you listen. and you let the people, figure it out for themselves, what they need and how they're gonna do it, and then you accompany them. And you offer the gifts that you have, and Father Greg offered a wonderful gift, as he learned it a hard way, he had to really fall on his face quite a few times, he would tell us, but he would learn that you need to listen to the people, you don't go and change things for somebody else. In Catholic Relief Services, in that integral human development, they're realizing, that we don't go in after a disaster or anything and say, we're gonna fix you. But you go and you sit with the people and you listen to them, because the solution comes from the people. Okay? Subsidiarity, it comes from the people. It doesn't come from somebody else walking in, but it comes from partnership, okay, from walking with. And Father Greg learned that, and because of that, he was able to accompany the people in beginning many projects that have been life-giving for the community. And that's, the great thing is when we go down, we're a part of those life-giving projects.
And it's a hotel we stay in, okay,
Do you always stay there?
except for 1 year.
Okay, yeah, it's a great hotel, a posada. Some of the projects, I know you've already seen them, but I wanna try to kind of relate it to that integral human development. There's a medical clinic, much needed. The people, went to Father Greg and he saw illness and common things that people were dying from that there are solutions to. And, they were able to build a medical clinic, and now they go out into the villages. Marywood is going on, I'm going on a May trip, but there's a March trip, and there are like nursing students and pre-PA students who are going on that trip, and they're gonna go out to the villages, and they're not gonna do, they're gonna learn. They were a little disappointed when they talked to Dr. Weiss, who organizes, and they all thought, we're gonna go out and we're gonna do our medical stuff on these people, and we're gonna tell them how to do this, and they're not gonna be sick anymore. And then when they spoke with him, he basically said, you're going out with the health promoters, and you're not gonna do, you're gonna be. You're gonna be. And they were like, whoa, you mean we're just gonna be? So it's that whole idea, it's hard for us a lot, because we wanna do. We're so used to doing and then feeling good about ourselves doing, and it's not bad to feel good about yourself, but it's not about doing to feel good about myself. So they're having a hard time, a little bit of a challenge, saying, we're gonna go and we're just gonna be and we're gonna learn. We're not gonna teach them how to do this. Well, maybe, but that's not your primary reason. Your primary reason is to accompany. So,
Last year we went and there was nurses who were getting their masters and PhDs in nursing, and they went to learn the native care of the sick and midwifery, midwives.
yes, oh, wow.
And so they were getting their PhDs and they were going to learn from the people there.
Wow.
I forgot what university it was. San Francisco.
Wow. There's a reforestation project, which is a wonderful project. I don't know if Toribio is still there. I hope he is.
I think I saw his name on the list.
Okay. One of the things, well, let's just go through the whole piece of it. If you notice, these are some of the Marywood students. If you notice some of the things they're doing, especially the one on the top and this one, we're sitting around a big pile of dirt. We're putting dirt in a bag. And if we just look at the little picture, it's kind of like, what did we spend 2 semesters fundraising, community building, learning, reading, and we're sitting around a big pile of dirt, putting dirt in a bag? Or, we're, at least that looks like we're doing something, but sitting around a big pile of dirt. And one of the hardest things, but if you really think about it in terms of the big picture, don't get lost in the weeds. You can get lost in the weeds if you just think, I'm putting dirt in a bag. Meaningless. But if you look at the big picture, I'm putting dirt in a bag, and that bag is gonna be passed on someone is gonna put seeds in that dirt. And when those seedlings come up, somebody's gonna care for those little seedlings. And when they get big enough, those seedlings are gonna go out with the children who are gonna be educated. And they're gonna take those seedlings home, and their families are gonna plant those seedlings, and those seedlings are gonna grow into trees. And Guatemala, which has been raped of their, much of their forest because of people using firewood for cooking, and people like ourselves who want wonderful woods like mahogany, which grow in some of the forests in Guatemala, we're giving life back to the people. If you think of the big picture, my little putting dirt in a bag is meaningless if I just think of me. But if I think of it in terms of the big picture, it's a piece of the bigger puzzle, and there's a connection there. Because if I didn't, or somebody didn't put dirt in the bag, the seed never would have gotten there, the seedling would have never gotten there. That seedling wouldn't be passed on to the children, would pass it on to their families who had planted, and the trees would grow. That make sense? The big picture. Don't get lost in the weeds. It all has meaning. It all has meaning. There's a coffee co-op. I'm not sure if there's any coffee picking in March yet. I think that it's over by then. But, you know, I know you studied, at least from your notes, you know, the coffee co-op and how Father Greg worked with the people, and they were able to sustain themselves when the rest of the world, the coffee prices, you know, tumbled. And there's a community that's able to live off of this wonderful, off of growing coffee with a very, very more than just wage. There's a school, and I'll talk a little bit more about education, which is the best. There's a women's center. You know, along the way, Father Greg noted, and he sat with some of the people of the village, he noted that women were kind of slaves in a sense. You know, society in the indigenous community allowed men, the men work very hard in the day, they might be in the fields or whatever, but when they come home, you know, they have their supper, and then they're basically free. They can go and play soccer, they can go and be with the guys, that's allowed. But the women are cooking, cleaning with the children, weaving, and there's no outlet for the women. And when, not that that doesn't have value, but when you're kind of a slave to, you're alone, you know, with the work you're charged to do, that could be an enslavement. So Father Greg gathered. He gathered with some of the men in the village. And in talking with them, he was able to propose a women's center where the women could come and they could weave and they could learn new ways of cooking. They could bring their children. And so they could have some sense of community among themselves. So the women come and they have an outlet that's acceptable. They learn new things, they can take the new things home, whether it be a way of cooking, a way of using soy for protein, whether it be a way of baking bread or making something new with the tortillas. They weave. And they bring their children, and there's a wonderful green spot where the children can play in a safe, secure place. But it happened because Father Greg didn't come and say, we need this, we're gonna do it for you. He sat with the people, and he had an inkling, he had a sense, you know, but he sat with the people, and it came from the group. That sense of human development comes from here. It doesn't come from somebody telling you, it comes from the community, it comes from the people, and it benefits everybody. It benefits everybody.
I just saw something, so if any of you at home have work gloves, bring along a pair of work gloves. Sometimes we do need them. Like we did a lot of, you know, like Ani and Nick and would have had incredibly bloody hands if they didn't have work gloves. If you don't have work gloves, Raquel and I have some extra work gloves that we're gonna bring along, so there'll be enough for everybody, but if you have your own size that you can get at home, please bring it.
You know, sometimes we're asked, they might be building something, a building. A lot of this was from the Women's Center, and they may say, no, we need your group to go out, and we're gonna show you how to use rebar, bending rebar. And so your work gloves are really great. But it's kind of exciting because in the next slide, all these bricks and all that passing of rocks, Since 2007, I've been going down with students. This will be the 10th or 11th trip that I'm taking the students with me. And I remember for about 3 or 4 years, and you probably were, when we would pass rocks for that road, we would pass rocks. Some days, all day, we would just pass
Huge rocks.
huge rocks. And I remember, you know, we would talk with the students and say like, you have to be thinking, what am I doing? I'm
Moving
passing
rock from
rocks.
here to here.
Exactly. And you know what? Every year I'd go back, I would take pictures, and you know what? After about 4 years, those rocks that many, many groups and many universities passed, it's now a road. And the road goes from down to the top, and what it does, it connects. Before, the people, when they would pick the coffee beans, they would have to walk up this hill, this dirt road, this dirt rocky road with, are they 100-pound bags? Of beans, of coffee beans on their heads, and these guys, you know, can you imagine 100 pounds of walking up this hill? Well, now, it's a road, so now they could take a truck and they don't have to kill themselves, you know. So we can see the results of our labors now, we can see the bigger picture now. In the beginning, when we would concentrate on ourselves, we couldn't see the big picture. It was like, what are we doing? But now, so when we take pictures back to groups that have gone before, it's like, look at the outcome. Your passing that rock, which seemed meaningless at the time, it has made a difference in the big picture. In the big picture. Because it has helped a community, and we work right with the people. It's not that we do something, we work right with the people. Okay, just
So all of these things, like cracking rocks,
Cracking
you know,
rock.
for like 3 hours on end. And you don't see, you're right, you don't see the big picture.
No, you have to believe in the big picture, and when you can see the big picture, it makes sense. Don't get lost in the weeds, but,
The boat.
that's Lake Atitlan. When you're there, that's how people travel from one side of the lake to the other, boat. You may get a chance, I don't know, to go on a boat ride. The lake is quite large, but from one town to the next.
It's like sometime, the farthest is like a 3-hour boat ride.
Yeah.
We tend to go to Santiago
By truck.
by truck,
Mhm.
so we can spend more time.
That's what we do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the lake right there. Chichicastenango, you're gonna, you might get to spend a day there. That's the mission where I'm connected. We go to San Lucas, but I lived in Chichicastenango. I really wanna put Chichi on here, because I wanna talk about education a little bit. You know, we spoke a little bit about Father Greg, and you will hear lots about Father Greg, and the wonderful way that he was able to be with the people and really make change, not by stepping on people and telling them, but really by working alongside the people. Same thing in Chichicastenango. This is the church in Chichi, the town.
Chichi is how large?
You know what, I always forget number-wise.
It looks much bigger than San Lucas.
It is a lot bigger than, it is. Chichicastenango, the town itself, where you're gonna see, is like the central part, but the Chichicastenango itself has 82 villages. So it goes out into the, there are villages that take, because some of them don't have roads, so like walking, like 3 hours just to get to. Chichi's a lot bigger than, it's a lot bigger than some of these. Number-wise, I'm not good with numbers. That's why I'm on the development committee. This is the typical clothing of Chichicastenango. Again, it's similar to the repeal that I have on the mission in Chichicastenango is a mission of education. There's a mission of education in San Lucas as well. The Dominican Sisters, Dominicas de la Annunciata, the Dominican Sisters of the Annunciation, have a 51, last year was 50 years, 51-year presence in the town of Chichicastenango. One of the things I want to say about this, the mission basically is education, although they do catechetical work. The mission grew out of the ruins of another school that was destroyed during the violence of the war, the Civil War. You saw the movie When the Mountains Tremble? She was from this area a little bit farther down, from Uspanpan. During the violence in 1980, 81, which was the height of the violence in the indigenous areas of the Western Highlands, in Chichicastenango, in Quiché, in San Lucas, in those areas. But Chichicastenango and Quiché was horribly hit. And the army occupied this actual, where the school is. The army occupied it, and the sisters, the priests, they left the diocese because they were being killed. 3 priests were martyred right in Chichi. And the army really destroyed, they tortured people, they used the school, and the Maris brothers have a school as well, about 2 blocks down, and they really used the place as a torture chamber for people. They tortured and they killed people, and then threw them over the side of the mountain. But after they left, they occupied the area. When they left, the sisters came back, and they worked in the public schools for a while, but they decided, they looked at the need, and they said, there are so many women in particular, indigenous women, who have never gone to school. We want to start a Catholic school. Instead of going out to the public schools, we want to start a Catholic school. So they, with the help of an organization called the Christian Foundation for Children and Aging, they just changed their name, but their bases, one of their bases is in San Lucas. They got help to refurbish a couple of the buildings that were destroyed, and they began a Catholic school called the Centro Educativo Annunciata, the Education Center of the Annunciation. And they began really a place of death. It is now a place of life, and it's still in evolution. They noticed, and they went out, they talk about starting at the grassroots. They didn't say, we know what you need education. They went out to the villages where the army had occupied, and people who were affected by the war. They went out and they sat with the people and said, what do you need? What would you like? Okay, education was an important thing. They would take these girls from these villages where there were no schools, and they said, let us take your girls, we have a residence. Okay, we'll educate them. Give them to us, we'll take them. And they began to talk to families, and they started this school. It started with 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. I got there in 1994, and it was like first preschool to 6th grade, and they were just starting like 7th and 8th grade, which would be básico. Now, 20 years later, it takes a long time, they now have the next level of education, which is a teacher school. They graduated their first class last year. This is the 2nd class, with the help of many, many, many people. But before the sisters did that, the school was in evolution. I was there at a wonderful time when grades were being added on, and we had to go out and get the support of people outside the country for funding. We got help inside the country as well, but we needed funding. And when students came, when people came, the people began to say, okay, after we finish going to school, and it's not a free, it's not a handout. People pay what they can afford to pay, but it's a sliding scale. Parents come and they say, the sister in charge says, this is the deal. What can you afford? If it's $2 a month, that's okay. But what, it's according to your need. The people began to say, okay, when we finish here, there's a need, if we could, we might go somewhere else to continue our education, but right here in Chichicastenango, the brothers have like technical things like computer technology, mechanical drawing, carpentry, but we need something else. There's a school that does accounting. And so the sisters sat down with the people who were coming, and they decided there's nothing as far as primary school education or preschool education. And so for it's about 8 years, because I was still there then, that the dream was, this is what the people want. And so we worked and we worked and we worked and we worked. And finally, a parish in North Carolina and many other people helped us with funding for a building. And many, many people, there's a lot of red tape, and this building was built. And last year was the first, it's 3 years of teacher education and a wonderful, wonderful example of, from the grassroots up, what do you need? You tell us, and then we'll work together and get it done. This is the new building. It's still, you know, we need more funding, but it's functional, the first 2 floors. The Centro Educativo Anunciadas.
So you see the rebar up on the roof, that's so they can add a 3rd floor when they have, 10, 15 years from now, they can add a 3rd floor. But it's built with the steel post, I guess, ready for it.
There's actually a roof on it. It's not usable yet because the funding ran out, but when we get funding, but we needed to put a roof on it. It was just finished so that the rains wouldn't destroy what was already done. But a wonderful example of the work of many people, the bigger community, the wider community, and something in evolution. A place of death becomes a place of life. One of the things the sisters do, and I know they do this in San Lucas as well, I think they do, accepting the people where they are. Everybody in the public schools wears uniforms. Okay, no matter if you're an indigenous person, you have your typical clothing, everybody dresses the same. The sisters very early on said, you know what, when people come to our school, if they wear indigenous clothing, we need to let them feel and acknowledge them and allow them to feel proud of who they are. You know, we may have a sweater that they wear, but they are allowed to wear, we have no uniform, they wear, if they don't wear indigenous clothing, that's fine, you wear whatever you wear. But the sisters have total respect for the people, you know, for the dignity of the person. And so, you know, these are the teachers, you know, they have to have a sweater, they, as teachers, that when they're going out, they have to wear a sweater, because they have their indigenous clothing, that's the new building.
How old would the girls be who are in the teacher school?
They look young.
They do look, yeah, so young.
They would be like, maybe 16, 17, 18. There might be a few older ones, but they're very,
So they would start teaching when they're about 18 or something?
they
like
can
that?
start teaching, most, if they've gone all along, you know, 18-year-olds. Yeah. And they look younger, of course, than them. Okay, just some examples of meeting the people where they are, okay, with what is important to them, but also adding, you know, you're gonna notice computers. Okay, there's a wonderful, it's a project, so they're probably not learning to the point of where Dr. Zurich would, but they're learning technology, but also a reverence for who they are, not trying to change them, but trying to offer education. Everybody needs to know technology to some degree, okay? But not trying to change who they are as people, walking with them, really.
So, just in that picture, so we knew that when Sister Donna was there, she started the school choir. And so we happened to be in Chi-Chi on Ash Wednesday. And so we thought, oh, we're gonna go to Ash Wednesday Church and, hear Sister Donna's choir. And we were thinking, okay, maybe like a Cabrini College choir, maybe 15, 20 people or something like that. We went into this huge church, and like the sound was, how many people were in that choir that day? It was huge. Like it seemed like everybody was.
I don't know, but that's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And then we went to lunch with the kids. And is your birthday the first week in March?
No, second.
Second week, we happened to be there when it was her birthday. So we got the whole school to sing happy birthday to Sister Donna, and we videotaped it and sent it to her.
That was great.
Yeah.
That was great.
Are those your paintings on the wall in that church, on the right-hand side?
Actually, they're I was the orchestrator. One of the things, when I got there, the chapel where the students, pray, the residents and that, it was all blank, it was all white, which is fine. But I was teaching art, And one of the things I decided to do, it's called the Annunciation, it's called the Annunciation. So we were studying a particular kind of abstract art. So we designed, I kind of orchestrated it, but we designed some abstract image of the Annunciation. And so, we measured it out, and then the students actually did it, and I put some final touches on it. And then we realized there's just one painting, so we ended up doing, a whole series, But then on the front wall, it was a wonderful, I think my intent was to celebrate all the different cultures, but I was teaching religion. We're doing a section on the Eucharist, and if you get there, you'll be able to see it, but I asked all the students to divide into whatever indigenous group they were from, and there were about 9 different groups represented. And I asked them, we took the image of corn, because corn is for the Eucharist, for the people, And so we did this mural on the wall in the chapel, it's on the front wall. And we did the traditional kind of chalice look, and, we put a stalk of corn. But then each group painted people from their village in their typical clothing on this mural. And it's still there. But a celebration of who they are. Am I taking up too much time?
No.
Yeah, I'm almost. This is just the residents, the internado, and some of the girls in Chichi. The idea of community. Some of the girls live there, many more, and boys can also come to the school as day students. But the whole idea is community. The girls that live there, they're all in charge of, they have charges, they have chores, they're responsible for not only themselves, but for each other. Everything from cleaning windows to cleaning bathrooms to helping the women cook the meals, to washing, to cleaning, to, yeah. Just a couple, I don't want to say success stories, but success stars, because these are a few women who, when you meet people where they are and you walk with them, wonderful things can happen. And it can happen through medicine, it could happen through a coffee co-op, it could happen from a women's center, but it happens all the time through education. These are just a few women, and you'll meet some of them. The mission in Chichicastenango, as the missions in San Lucas, the people are very, very poor economically. Okay, they struggle. In Chichicastenango, when the people come, the sisters do not take people, a lot of times people will come from the capital and say, I want my girl to go here. Well, we don't take people from the capital, people who have money, okay? Because the mission is for those who would be denied an education if it weren't for this opportunity. Is it that they don't need money? The sisters, no. We are, one of my roles here is to keep up a relationship with this parish that helps us and to try to get funding for the sisters. The people pay what they can afford to pay. But here are some wonderful success stories. Kata. Kata was a victim, a direct victim of the violence of the war in the 80s and 90s. Kata and her family had to, if you remember the film, When the Mountains Tremble, she lived in the mountains with her family. They fled, okay? They would hear the bombs coming, they would hide out. When Kata is one of those young women who, when the sisters went out to the villages, they said, come, come. And when Kata came to the internado in the school, when the lights would go out in the residence hall, she would panic. She would think it was the helicopters, the planes dropping bombs. Kata has a disease known as Marfan syndrome. They're not sure if, they thought it was from the weather when they lived in the jungle, but it's probably a hereditary thing. Marfan syndrome is a disease of the connective tissue, and it could be, actually Abraham Lincoln had it too. It could be, usually the person is very lanky, it could be the connective tissue in joints. In her case, it is her optic nerve. When Kata came to us, she had very poor eyesight, and it was getting worse and worse. Kata she was the first person, not only female, the first person in her little village to ever leave the village to go to school, because there wasn't a school in the village. When Kata came, she had to overcome all these fears. She was going blind, and when we finally took her, she was studying up until what would be like 9th grade with us, and we realized like she would have to really squint. So we took her to the best ophthalmologist in the capital. His father, his grandfather, and his great-grandfather were ophthalmologists. He studied in the States. And we took her to him, and he basically said to her, you have Marfan syndrome, and basically there's no cure, and the best I could do is give you contact lenses. Now, if you can imagine contact lenses, he gave her glasses, but they were just getting thicker and thicker. Kata had every strike against her. She was poor, she's indigenous, she's a woman, and she's almost blind. Kata ended with us, and she went to a bilingual teacher school in a village which is, in a town which is closer to her village. Not bilingual Spanish and English, bilingual Spanish, and it's not Quiche, it's not Sukuhil, it's, I'll think of her actual language in a minute. But anyway, as she was studying, she literally would have to go in teacher school to the board, and then she made a group of friends, one which became her husband, and she passed with she was one of like what would be considered the valedictorian of her class. That doctor, he about every 3 months she would have to go back and he have to change the contact lenses. He never charged her once. She would come and he just took a real liking to her. She would bring him some weavings or whatever. He would always ask her, he'd say, Kata, do you have a boyfriend? Remember, she would always say to me, sister, why is he asking me that? And every time he'd say, do you have a boyfriend? And finally he said to her, I'm asking you that because of your disease, when you get married or if you have sexual relations and you become pregnant, you can never, ever, ever have a child by natural childbirth, or the pushing will break the thin optic nerve that is there, and you will go blind. And so he'd say, you need to have a cesarean. Well, Kata, she just is such a trooper. She's just a success star. She went to teacher school, struggled, passed wonderfully, met her wonderful husband, Javier. They got married. She became pregnant. She had a C-section as she had a beautiful little boy. She and her husband are teachers in their village where there was not a school before. They are teaching bilingually their people. She has a women's group, and she is teaching women about protein sources, about planting soy, okay, as an alternative source to just to tortillas and to beans. She got pregnant a second time a few years later, and she had her second child with a comadrona, a midwife. I don't know if she forgot about, I don't know. She had the baby and she is still, they are parents of 2 children, and they have gone back, she and her husband, and they are teachers, and they are making a difference in their community where there was not a school before. Talk about a success story. Talk about somebody walking with, and the sisters really walked with her. This girl, you're gonna see Ava. Ava's a teacher in school. She's all of this big. Ava teaches 3rd or 4th grade. Ava comes from dire, dire poverty. When she was a little girl, her mother is still in town. Her mother is, as an older woman, she's a single mom, and the mom really lived on the street. One of the Maris brothers met the mom and Ava when she was just a student. She was in 2nd grade. She was dirty. They lived on the street. He found help and helped build a little adobe house, 3 rooms. They built a house, and the mom has a house. Ava lives with her mom. She was able, with the help of other people, able to finish school, go on to teacher school. She is now a teacher in the school. And when you look at her, she is passionate about teaching. She is back making a living, but making a difference. More important, not more important, but just as important as making a living, she's making a difference in the lives of other people. She who came from poverty, somebody walked with her. In this case, it was the Maris brother, along with the sisters, and she's there, and she is dynamite. She's all over this space. Very quickly, Reina, you'll see Reina. Reina is gonna get her degree. She's gonna be a lawyer. She's graduating this year from law school. Reina lived in the jungle during the violence also. She lived up in the triangle. Reina, her father was a catechist, and they suffered terribly. She came years ago. She probably looks all of 17. She's probably about 30, 27 at least. Reina came, studied with the sisters. She went on to, I think, accounting school, blah, blah, blah. She came back, and the wonderful thing that the sisters are able to do is teachers or other students, after they graduate, if there's a job available, they could come back. Because they could come back, they get a salary, but they live in the residence. And when they live in the residence, they have chores to do to help organize, because the sisters can't do it all together, but they don't have to pay rent. So they could save their salary and begin to go to the university on weekends, on Saturdays. They would never be able to do that if they had to pay rent, room and board to study. But that's a way that young people are able, it takes longer, but they're able to go and further their education. Reina will graduate this year in law. It's taken forever, but she'll be a lawyer. Romelia, she teaches, I think, 3rd grade, 2nd grade maybe. Romelia, a whole group of her family, her sisters studied in the internat, a very, very poor family. When she graduated, she went on to teacher school. She became a teacher. She came back and she lived in the internat, in the residence, helped out. She used her salary to put herself through, she's still going to the university, but to help educate her brothers and sisters as well. She married a wonderful man, he's a teacher. She now doesn't live at the internat, though she teaches. She has 2 beautiful children. What a wonderful teacher and mother. Talk about a woman with dignity. Really, she came from dire poverty. That wonderful cycle of not losing the big picture and that connection. And just very quickly, these 3 women all graduated from the school in Chichi. They were able to go on. One is a social worker, and 2 are working, I think it's with Catholic Charities in Guatemala. One is a social worker, one is, the other one might be studying law, and then but 2 of them work at Catholic Charities. Just very, very quickly, in the land of eternal tyranny. All the good things that are happening, Guatemala still carries the weight of oppression. I'm going to give each of you, before you leave, a picture, just a little card. This is a painting that is in Quiché, in the Diocese of Quiché. It's a very large painting. It's really the history of the people of Quiché, the life, death, and resurrection. Life, and then the Spanish conquest. And from the Spanish conquest in the 1500s, including, in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s, the war, the oppression of the people, especially the indigenous people, and they're beginning to resurrect. Just very quickly, you could read the statistics, but some of the homes that you'll see, made of adobe. Now some folks who are able to earn a little bit more money, or folks who have immigrated to the United States, who send money back. You'll see homes that are made of cinder block. Okay, usually homes that are made of cinder block, someone might have someone in the States sending some money home. Most people, indigenous folks have adobe houses with tin roofs. Poverty and extreme poverty. Poverty, of course, is when you don't have, enough food, clothing, shelter, or education. Extreme poverty is you're not even talking education, you're not talking shelter, you're not talking clothing, you're talking you don't even have enough food. And 21% of the 53% of the people living in poverty, dire poverty. And that's usually in the rural parts of Guatemala more than in the capital. And it's a whole piece, and I think that was one of your topics, I'm not sure, that Dr. Green and Dr. Zurich gave you, but the inequality of wealth. A few people own everything, and then everybody else is forced to live off of what's left. It's a real wealth inequality in Guatemala. Just very quickly, in the capital city, we're not gonna get a chance, our group, but the sisters, the same group of Dominican sisters, they have a couple missions in the capital, and one is a school in the garbage dump in Guatemala City in Zone 3. Many people, more than half the population lives on less than $2 a day, and of course that includes the people living in the garbage dump. Someday, it's dangerous, you can't go there yourself, but the sisters have a woman who works for the sisters now, who is from the garbage dump, who take people on tours. You would never just go yourself. But when you see how some people are forced to live, you see the big picture. You see the poverty. The sister up there, she's the principal of the school in the garbage dump. Her name is Esperanza, Sister Hope. Malnutrition is a real problem, especially with children. There's a difference between, eating to fill yourself up and eating so that your body is healthy. Child labor is a challenge as well. Many children are forced to help with the family income. Some do go to school. Many others, especially the farther rural you get, many still don't have the opportunity to go to school. Around the lake, these are children around Lake Atitlan. Whenever little children come up to sell things, I always like to have a conversation with them. A lot of times I won't buy anything. Sometimes I'll buy some, little thing, but I like to sit with them and I ask them, do you go to school? Where do you go to school? What are you selling? And do you make it? Does your mom make it? To find out something about them. Some children do go to school, but they have to sell to help the family. Other ones, that's what they do all the time. Education in Guatemala, it is different in San Lucas with in the mission, and it's different with the sisters, the Dominican sisters in Chichi, because they're private schools. But public education is, in the Western Hemisphere, it only is surpassed by Haiti as far as the quality of education. It has a long way to go as far as public education. Just some scenes. Many children have to take care of siblings because of large families. Just a quick, these are real people, real pictures I've taken. If you take a look at the pairs of pictures, the difference between the pictures on the left-hand side and the pictures on the right-hand side. I don't know if you can see a difference or not. What's the difference? What do you see as the difference?
Happiness.
Pardon?
Like one side is definitely happier than the other. Smiling.
Okay. Yeah. And if you look, I get a sense, and these are random pictures that I took, and I was looking, to put them together. The photos on the left-hand side are girls who are studying or who have studied. And, education has a wonderful way of helping people to realize their own dignity and their own worth. And when someone, and it certainly goes for men as well, but in Guatemala, if you're a woman, you're poor and you're indigenous, you have 3 strikes against you. Men have a better opportunity. It's just a machista society. But when a person realizes that they're worth something, and they feel that sense of dignity, it makes all the difference, not only in a smile, but in the way they care for themselves. When you feel that you're worth something, you put in the extra time to comb your hair, or to, you know, you may not have the best clothing, but you wanna look nice, you know, cause you feel good about yourself. When you don't believe that you're worth anything, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Some of these other young women, I would never take a camera and go shoot somebody's face. I was hiding. But to look, you know, the sense of a lack of a sense of dignity, you know, begging. This young woman, she was sitting, I think that was Antigua, if I'm not mistaken, sitting with a cup begging. You know, there's a difference between dignity and a lack of dignity. That's just the girls who that sense of I wanted to put that in, that sense of completeness, of wholeness, of the connection of everything. There's some girls in the internavel. Individuals, but the relationship of the individual to the community. Catholic social teaching, okay, the sacredness of life, and it connects everything. Once we recognize our own sacredness and the sacredness of everyone else, people and planet, then we have to act differently. How could you not be different when you reverence? There's a wonderful quote, well, I'll get to the quote in a second, by, he's a Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, I always don't pronounce it right. And he says, walk as if you're kissing the earth with your feet. Walk as if you're kissing the earth with your feet. Walk with a sense of consciousness. You know, it's hard when you're in a building, but when you're outside, you walk as if your feet are kissing this precious thing. Talk about dignity. You know, if you're conscious of the dignity of people and planet, then we have to act differently. We don't have a choice. We can't do anything but. CRS, I always have to pause, CRS, you know, they speak of looking at what they do through the lens of justice. I am asked at this point, I have been doing it for 7 years now. Oh my God, it's going on 8 years. Working as the justice promoter for my congregation of sisters. And being a person, a visual person, I'm an artist probably by birth, but by profession, I need to see something in front of me to have it make sense. And so when I was trying to make sense of what is justice work about, you know, and people say, what do you do? You know, what do you do? And I said, what don't I do? I don't know. You know, I put together this phrase that helps me, and maybe it will help you, maybe it won't, but it helps me. And when I look at what justice is, and looking at an issue, looking at the world through justice, how I see it, and this is just me. May help you, may not. I think for me, justice is an attempt to see the world with the eyes of God. And if we go back even to the Maya cosmovision, heart of heaven, heart of earth, God is love. If I can look at the world, and I can never do it perfectly, but with eyes of love, then I'll be able to better live in the world with the heart of Jesus. But I could never look at the world with God's eyes unless I take time, and for me, and for everybody, I think, our world, you know, I keep hearing over and over the wonders of meditation. Now they're, you know, all these movie stars and that are doing meditation, you know. But the importance of finding time for, call it prayer, call it contemplation, call it meditation, call it whatever we want to call it, but that silence that we can begin to see things differently. You know, when God sees the world, however God sees the world, if God is love, and God sees the world very different than we do, if I can begin to see things, whether they be issues, whether they be people, whether whatever, then I can better make choices and live with the passion of Jesus. And Jesus was about love. Jesus was about being a troublemaker too. Okay, but it was all about love. It was all about relationship, and it was all about being with the people. That helps me that helps me, especially, whatever issue. We're dealing in the northeastern Pennsylvania right now with, in our hometown, with death issues of the death penalty anyway, Catholic social teaching we've done. All we need to do is to look at scripture, the Hebrew scriptures, it kind of ran together all in there. In the book of Micah, the prophet Micah, what does God ask? God asks that we love tenderly, we act justly, and we walk humbly with God. Okay? That we love, we act, and we walk. We continue the journey. We love, we act, and we walk. And then in Matthew, when the person comes up to Jesus and says, "What do I have to do? What's the most important commandment?" Jesus doesn't say anything about, be faithful to your wife and all this. Jesus says, love God and love your neighbor. What else can you say? Not good enough to separate in silos, God up there, us down here. Makes no sense to love up there if you're not going to love down here. Somehow, the Mayan cosmovision helps us to see that. It's about the connection. Love of God, love of neighbor, heart of heaven, love, heart of earth. When you're going in a week and a couple days, one of the things I would like to suggest, whatever you do, whatever you're asked to do, whether it's digging ditches, passing rocks, filling bags with dirt, maybe it'll be something a little more interesting, like helping build a house, who knows? Maybe building an oven so that people could use less firewood, whatever it is. I really believe that's a vehicle. It's not important so much what you do. I believe that's a vehicle to form a relationship with people. Because it's hard, you just go down and say, I want to form a relationship with you. But through working together, okay, I think it's all about, it's an excuse really to be with people and to walk with people and to allow those people to walk with us as well. And so in the words of my dear friend Jana Vaca, and it went off the page, but anyway, it's not about what you do, okay, but it's about how you go about doing it. It's not about what you see, but it's about how you see. And it's not what you say, what you know, or what you achieve. It is your presence that matters. And so I would ask you, no matter what you're asked to do, and as you reflect in your journals, as you talk among yourselves, remember that it's your person. Okay? The dignity of your person, the dignity of the other person, that makes the difference. I don't know if you have any comments or comments.
Feel free to, we're not a Montessori school, you don't have to raise your hand.
No, you don't have to raise your hands, you just talk out loud. I'll sit down so I'm not standing. Questions, comments?
I just think thank you. It was really interesting. Like all the pictures and everything, and it was really insightful. Like it gave more depth to what we were talking about, especially since you've been there so much.
I think it complements,
Yeah.
You have a lot of wonderful information. You've seen, just looking over your syllabus, wow. And it just complements, I think, just another dimension. Thank you. Anybody else, any comments or reflections or? Are you excited?
Yeah.
You are? I'm gonna pass out. If you have anything you wanna say, please feel free to say it. This is just a small copy of that painting. Ana Maria Gomez is the artist's name. I don't think you can see it. But it's a reflection. You may want to put it in your journal and reflect on it at some time about life, death, and resurrection.
I have one from last year, thank you.
So you went there,
In '94, which is the last year, it's when the Peace Corps.
No, 96, the peace
96?
treaty. I was so dumb. I was just naive. I went, you know, when I went down in 1994, this is kind of interesting. I went down on August 15th, and the week before I was going down, I was watching not 60 Minutes, it was 2020, Diane Sawyer. And she was interviewing, after I saw it, I thought, oh, I hope my mother didn't see this. She was interviewing Diana Ortiz, who was an Ursuline sister, who worked in Guatemala and was abducted and tortured. And she was able to escape. Diana Ortiz now works, I think it's Pax Christi? I think it is. I think it is. No, you know, it's not Pax Christi. She did work at Pax Christi for a while. It's the Center for Concern. But Diana Ortiz has a book. But anyway, when she was abducted, she was tortured and she was being interviewed and they were showing drawings she did. She went through trauma. She was able to escape. And she went through years of hell, torment. She, if you get a chance to read her book, the torture was horrendous. It was in the Army base in the capital, and there were dead people that had just been slaughtered, and she was thrown in with them, and there were rats, etc. She was raped successively by the military. She became pregnant and had an abortion. She went through trauma. She tried to commit suicide 3 times. No one believed her. Her own community, they didn't know what to do with it, you know. But anyway, it was in 1988 it happened, but it came on TV, like she had been going through this trauma. In 1994 on 2020, it was a week before I was leaving, and I remember thinking, wow, you know. Well, when I got to Guatemala, no, it was before 94 I went to stay. I went there to study 3 years before. When I went to study, I was studying in Antigua, Guatemala. I was living with a family and studying in a school. In the newspaper, I was only there 2 weeks, I'm reading Diana Ortiz was abducted in the place where I would go, this retreat house right down the street from where my family lived. I would sit in the park and I'm thinking, you know, oh my God, you know. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, you know, where am I, you know? But anyway, I began to do a lot of reading. She has since written a book called With a Blind Eye, and she writes about her, the whole experience. But anyway, when I did go to Guatemala in 1994, the Civil War was still going on. It was winding down. But I remember in our village, I would go running in the mornings, and on Sunday mornings, there would be all these men in uniforms, in tan uniforms, like practicing, marching, and I never knew what they were. And one time I asked the sisters, I said, what are they? And she said, they're the PAC. It was the Army training civilians, to guard the city, basically, to shoot people who weren't doing what they're paramilitary. And I'm like, wow, they're still here? I didn't know that. You know, I was pretty naive. The sisters, there were some U.S. sisters that lived about a half hour away, and they were actually in the gunfire between the military and the guerrillas at one point in 1994. It was like, whoa, I didn't realize that. But the peace accords were signed in 1996. An interesting thing, though, when the peace accords were signed, they, one of the the pieces of the peace accord was that the military would be cut in half and it would be a peacetime military. And what happened is, when you have a country that only knows violence, and unfortunately, the Guatemalan army, much of their torture tactics were learned at our School of the Americas in Fort Benning, Georgia. And that's one of the reasons why year after year, there's pressure to close it. We haven't closed it yet.
So Amy and Mackenzie, who might have her earplugs in, protested at the school, and Karina protested at the School of the Americas. this
Okay.
year.
Did you go down? Wonderful, wonderful. We used to go down, but we got too expensive, so we have a local piece in Scranton. We always have a speaker, and then we'd actually do the procession. Of course, the paper doesn't care about what we do, you know, it's the local paper, but we always invite them, but we do, you know. But, anyway, our military, our government has something to do with all of that. I forget where else I was going.
So you're talking about Diana Ortiz, I just have her pictures and I just bought her book.
Oh, okay.
Blindfolds Eyes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to read, it's good, I mean, it's good to read, it's hard, what she has gone through. But anyway, Diana Ortiz, now, I don't wanna say, I don't think you ever fully recover, but, she is working in Washington, with
Center of Concern.
Center of Concern. It's a justice group, but her story, but anyway, when I realized that she was right there, that she was abducted, it was like, whoa. But, oh, I know what I was saying. After the peace accords were signed, when you make a military, you cut it in half and you say, you're a peaceful military, when you only know torture and you release thousands of people that their life is torture, what do you think happens? If you release a bunch of people who know torture into society, what do you think happens? They go to become policemen because, well, you know, they go on to become involved in the drug trafficking. Okay? They go on to form gangs and become members of gangs. In Guatemala today, that's 96, 2006, that's 19 years ago. Guatemala has a problem, the police force, very corrupt police force. You know, if you're in trouble, you don't call the police, you call the fire. Many of the military who were released, where to get a job? Oh, go to the police. So you have a corrupt police force. Gangs are a problem, especially in the capital. Okay, gangs. And of course the drug trade going from Colombia all the way up to the States goes right through Guatemala. And so a lot of these people, because it wasn't an infrastructure to retool them, to retrain them, you release them and you say, okay, you've been trained to do this, now go. And so as a consequence, you know, a generation later, we have all these challenges in Guatemala. But if you think about it, talking about the big picture, if you think about the drug trade, where do the drugs go? Who uses the drugs?
Goes to here.
When you think about it, we have a big part to play in the lives of so many people that we don't even know. And it dawned on me 3 years ago when I was in San Lucas and I was reading the morning paper. In the morning I get up before the students and I go running or walking around town and I buy a newspaper and I sit on the church steps with a cup of coffee and read the newspaper. And one day I was reading the paper and it was about a massacre that happened in one of the fincas. And it was about, a finca is a plantation on the coast. I think it was a sugar plantation. And people involved in the drug trafficking, the drug lords, were looking for one of the drug lords who they believed did them in. He cheated. So they went to his finca and they find all these indigenous people who are just day laborers. They don't even know who the boss is. You know, they're just there cutting. And they came and they said, where's so-and-so? Well, they don't even know who so-and-so is. You know, they never see the big guy. And what these drug lords did is they decapitated I think it was 27 people, men, women, and children. And when I read that in the paper, I wanted to throw up, but it dawned on me in a very powerful way. I thought, where are these drugs going? They're going to the US of A because of our drug use. And so in our drug use, whether it be recreational drugs or whatever, because of our drug use, we are affecting the lives of people that we don't even know. And in some way, we're responsible for the deaths of those people. It dawned on me in a very powerful way. If there was not a need, if there was not a market for drugs in our country, think of the difference that would make. Talking about the big picture. It dawned on me in a very profound way that, wow, we all play a role in that, in the lives of people we don't even know.
How do people who may have been, maybe cooperated with the military versus those who may have opposed, been on different sides, but now they're still living, and families are still living in the same community, how does that work out? Or are we from the north, could you ever even see that, or is that so subterranean in the relationships that you might not have aware of?
I don't know what the general answer is. I just know a few people, a few personal cases, like in Chichicastenango, some of the retired teachers, I've had the opportunity to talk with them. They were these para-military guys, and they were forced to carry guns and shoot anybody. Now, the three people that I've spoken with, the one man is such a gentle man, and he sobs when he talks about it, but he's probably in his 60s, I would guess. He said, "Sister, I could never shoot anyone." He said, "But I knew if I didn't pretend, I would be shot by the military." Right now, he lives in the community with everybody else, and I think people, according to him, have kind of put that, it has to be dealt with at some point, but they've kind of depressed that, so people live together, but they don't talk about it. And I'm wondering if that's some of the dis-ease, if you don't get it out and reconcile it, there's a dis-ease,
It's a trauma that does not heal.
Exactly. Maybe it heals with generations, I don't know, but it's, so that's interesting, it's a very interesting question.
When we go to San Lucas, which will be there for a couple days, we might not go out into the, more rural little villages. Could you just talk a little bit about the difference between what we'll see, like right in San Lucas versus what are the living conditions out in the more peripheral little towns or little villages or clusters?
Right in San Lucas, where you'll be staying, where we'll be staying, there are little, we call them hotels, but it's not like in the Ramada or anything. They're simple, they're family owned, so we're helping contribute to the economy of the town. Around town, most of the buildings are cinder block. There are some adobe houses, but for the most part in town, both in Chichicastenango and in San Lucas, the main town, they'll have water. It's not potable water for drinking, so you need to, use bottled water. But for bathing and everything, it's fine. They have some electricity. A lot of times it's not stable. You may get highs and lows. The farther rural you get, the houses are adobe. Adobe is made of clay, mud, and straw, hay, that's sun-dried. So they're dirt houses in a sense. They may have 2-3 rooms, they're dirt floors, and usually like a tin kind of roof. Sometimes it's a clay roof. The farther out you get, the house is used for everything. The women cook in one little section with firewood, so a lot of times you get that smoke if you're cooking, you're getting smoke. And people sleep, the farther out you go, most people don't have beds, the farther out you get. So you have these adobe floors and adobe walls, and so what people do is they'll have mats, straw mats that they roll up in the day, and at night, they just put them on the floor, and then people sleep on the floor. And then they're rolled up during the day, so that room could be used for something else. Very, very simple. As far as sanitary, bathrooms and that, the farther out you get, a lot of times they'll have latrines that are built, into the ground. So you're basically doing your necessities in the ground, and periodically they're moved, as.
Dig a new hole.
Right, right. In town, there are bathrooms, although you can never flush toilet paper, as you tell me. Just because the sewage, the system can't take paper. But the farther out you get, they're latrines, so they're like outhouses.
No, sister, in those places where in houses where they actually sleep on the cots on the floor, what happens during the rainy season when the ground is totally,
The adobe, depending on if they're
they don't get
it's
any
damp.
water and stuff?
They're pretty, I'm surprised at how, they're sun-baked, so the rain doesn't get, yeah, unless there's a leaky roof kind of thing. But one of the things you'll notice, and we worked on this project last year, I'm not sure if they still do, in some of the homes that are with cinder block, instead of using a lot of firewood to cook, to avoid all that contamination and smoke, they're building these ovens. Did you work on this?
Yeah, and I think we will again this year. It's one of their major projects.
Yeah, I meant to ask about the O'Neill, is it the O'Neill stove?
The what?
The O'Neill stove, where like they built it around like the stove, like, not the stove, but like the fire, and like it goes through the roof?
Yes, yes, so to avoid all that smoke in your house. What is it called?
The O'Neill?
O'Neill?
Yeah,
Okay, I didn't know what the name of it was, but yes.
cause my thing was, when I go down there, I wanted to ask who the idea came from. So like that, cause that would be like a good idea to take back to my country, cause people really get
What's
sick
your
from
country?
it. Liberia
Okay.
and the Ivory Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be like really interesting.
Excellent, was that one of the topics?
Yeah.
That's
Maybe this would be a
excellent.
good time to find out what
Yeah.
students were interested in, of the different projects that your different aspects. We could go around and, did you have a chance to look at the different options?
I really like the education one because I'm an education major, and it was really interesting to see that there's like built a Montessori center there, because I've been in peer placement at a Montessori school, and I really like the creating about the women's center.
Yeah, so we won't go into the San Lucas school because it's so disruptive to have, 15 gringos going there. But when we go to Chichicastenango, we will see the kids at lunchtime, and we'll talk to the teachers and things like that. We will see the Montessori school, but not, the little children are playing there. They're learning there. And the women's center as well.
That's great.
I said about the immigration, but a lot of the topics that I saw were definitely interesting. And there's not one. I mean, there are some that stand out more than others, but anything that I learned about it, I appreciated it.
I don't remember, did we ask you to write it down, or did we just say we were gonna ask you in class?
No, I think we said we wrote it down.
Okay, on your website, okay.
I think the education would be cool because like it only goes to a certain point. Like we're going until we're 21. They're getting much not limited. Like they're but that's interesting. I think to learn about to see.
When we go to Chi-Chi, we'll have a chance to spend a couple hours with the teachers, and it's really a discussion. And so some of us can speak Spanish, but a couple of us not so much. I guess Joey and I are pretty much in that same boat. Okay? So, we really are going to depend on you all people who can speak some Spanish to be very proactive. So it's gonna be a conversation, and they're very quiet people and shy people. So, you know, in order to have a conversation, we're gonna have to stretch. You know, we're gonna have to really get over our scaredness of saying the wrong grammar, and Dr. Green is gonna mark you wrong because you have the wrong tense. And those of us who are so illiterate, like myself, you know, are gonna look towards you guys who are Spanish learners, you know, just to struggle as much as you can. But what they're gonna do is, they're not used, they're like your age, and they're not used to giving public talks to North Americans, and so they're gonna say, do you have any questions? And then it's gonna be quiet. And so that means that you guys are gonna really have to stretch and carry on a discussion. And it's gonna be awkward, but it's gonna be awkward every day, like that.
My turn?
Christopher?
I was looking into the apprenticeships and stuff. I thought it was pretty cool because, like, I mean, if you can teach people apprenticeships, like, they can learn carpentry and, like, other things, so, like, you can build better houses
Yes.
and better structures so that things get better from, like, an infrastructure point of view.
Yes, that's excellent. And Chris was absent because he was sick last week, or no, he was away swimming.
Oh, yeah.
So make sure you tell him about the basket next to the toilet.
Oh, yeah, no, I know about I remember you telling us about
Okay.
that. I'm not as bad as Joey.
You were swimming at a swim meet,
Up in Grove City,
when?
Thursday to Saturday.
I think our group
Yeah.
was too, because we have two boys going in May, we never had
No,
boys.
Marywood wasn't at
Oh,
ours.
no? Okay, or there was somewhere.
Everywhere, it's like championship time
Okay.
this Saturday.
Gotcha.
so-
Bless you.
Bless you.
Our two boys are bilingual.
Oh.
Totally, yeah, so I'm happy.
Oh, they're from Chi-Chi and they're up at Marywood?
No, but two Marywood students.
Students.
Both, they're Latinos,
Oh.
so I'm thrilled then, because we never have anybody,
On your trip?
yeah.
They're coming. Haynes?
I said I would be most interested probably in the Juan on a farm because I grew up in Farmville, so and so I love animals and it was a lot of hard work, so I would.
Yeah, they have very active rabbits and chickens making fertilizer. And we're gonna be, you know, shoveling some and, it's sort of like what I
That's
do
very
for a
similar.
living. But and
Big picture.
And we're gonna be planting and things, so, yeah, you'll be the leader in that.
Okay. Well, I kind of connected a few of them from last semester. So women's rights, education, and trades. I think they kind of combine.
You know, can I ask you, so when they talk like with the young women, will the young women understand like women's empowerment? You know, will they use those kinds of terms that we use up here? How do we ask about like the women's advancement or promotion of women?
I think, like who will we be talking with?
Like the teacher, the young teachers at Chi-Chi.
Okay, like some of the teachers,
Yeah.
like the one study about, the one, if you say empowerment, they're probably not gonna know what that is.
Okay.
If you say maybe advancements or achievements or that kind of language. If you use empowerment, I think,
That's not a term
I
that
don't
would be
think,
used.
yeah. If you tell me the day you're going, if you tell me the day you're thinking of going, just to
I
like.
think we're gonna talk about that later.
Oh, good,
And
okay,
ask
oh,
you
good.
for your advice.
Yes, oh, good, okay.
I literally took the same approach as Erica. I linked it back to stuff from last semester and was looking at women's rights and like empowerment and stuff. And I don't know. I think it would just be interesting to like actually see it in person because I've like looked into it so much over the last semester and a half.
Could they ask about the relationship between males and females? Is that something they could
Sure.
discuss? Yeah. And could they ask about like the older generation and how parents equality between husband, or the relationship between husband and wife and,
I think the teachers would be able to address, like, yeah, I think.
you know, things are changing for the younger generation.
I like the education part just because, I mean, like, I'm not a minor or a major in it, but, like, growing up, I did, like, for high school, we had to do, like, community service, and I volunteered at, like, the Sunday schools or whatever, just, like, teaching, helping, like, the teacher teach, like, the younger kids about that kind of stuff, so for me, it was more, like, the educational part that caught my eye.
I love education just because I think it could be such a transformational cornerstone to a small community and then eventually much larger. So that's something that's really appealing.
A lot of the people, when young people will say, when you ask them what they're studying, if they're at the university, they'll say accounting. That seems to be very popular, and you know, like business.
Last year was that young woman, Manuelita, she wanted to become a psychologist, and one of our students was a psychology major, so she really connected with Manuelita, who worked in the library.
What's her name?
No, Manuelita. Yeah, she was Manuelita.
Oh.
I was thinking about Agustina. Manuelita was her name.
Agustina, she's gonna be a social worker, she's studying social work. Yes.
I'm
not sure I know who she is.
I'm interested in focusing on the weaving that I do, like mostly like the hooples, and like they're asking about like what each design means and like to which group each one goes to, designs go to.
If you get a chance, it's Professor Juan is, I call him my Renaissance friend. He is tech savvy as anything. He has all the newest gadgets, but he's the one who knows the deep history, which a lot of times is getting lost with newer generations. If you get a chance, Professor Juan.
I don't think we met him last year, did we?
He was not the one that.
No, he wasn't. I think we
Were
were.
you there in the
I don't think
afternoon?
we met your class.
We went there before and after lunch. We went for lunch, right? Yeah.
I know in the afternoons he's not there.
Mhm.
Mornings he is. But he,
You know, you told us about him last year to look him up, but we, in case he wasn't.
because one of the, I mean, if, he has a real, I think he teaches somewhere else in the afternoons. But if we get a date, I could drop him an email and just ask if he would be around, you know. He's really worth, talking with.
When we go to when we go to the Women's Center, you can there will be women weaving, and you can just sit next to them and just watch, and just, you know,
Ask her questions.
and just observe. It's so beautiful to see weaving being done.
Do most of them speak English?
No.
No, nobody.
And how do we talk to them?
Through our Spanish majors and minors.
Oh.
Our Spanish majors and minors, they're going to be the most popular people in the world.
Maybe I should bring my little dictionary on the plane and study.
If you go to Staples for $1, Staples has, and I get them whenever I can. I hate the word for dummies. I don't like that, but they have they're wonderful little Spanish for dummies. It's a small book, and it has enough phrases for you to get by, and I get them for my students all the time. I was looking to see if I had enough. They don't always have them, so I collect them until I get enough.
I'm interested in the youth program, because I really like working with young people, and the women's center, that seemed really interesting, and I really want to go there, and then try to finish, because I started one of these in Ecuador, but like I forgot how to do it, so I want to go back. I want to go to Guatemala and have somebody like help me finish it. So, and the stove. I want to find out about the stove.
I thought like education too, just because I think it's really important for them to learn, so then they have to grow and teach others. So I think that's always a important thing.
Religion religion is interesting also, because we're gonna go to mass a few times. And, you know, I was telling them how crowded the church is, so different from what we're used to. And how, you know, everyone is there, the whole family can go to something.
What do we wear to church?
I mean, I just wear my work clothes, because we're gonna go to work right after that. On Sunday, we'll dress up, you know, you won't be dirty yet on Sunday, so anything you wear down on the plane, you can wear it to Sunday mass. But then we'll go maybe during the week, once or twice. Because that really is the heart, the church is really the heart of the community. And you figure that was the safe place during the war, you know. Very important.
And the church is always, for the most part, at night it's closed, but it's open in the day, and people come and, you know, like here, you don't, churches are locked, you know, but people on the street will come and they'll make a little visit, and it's just, you know, the people in town, and then the people who work in the volunteers and those of us who are there and everybody else, you know, right next to the church is the gathering space where the meals are, or if you wanna sit and read or whatever, so it's.
Well, the funny thing about the church is like if we're in the place where the meals are at night, the church is used for like band practice, for all kinds of music, you know, singing, you know, so it's like the rec center for the whole, it's the only place where they can really gather inside the church. And it's right next to it.
It's not like the band, it's like the choirs, you know?
Yeah.
The band.
Well, no.
Well, no, they are, they're beautiful,
Yeah.
but they are, you're right, they,
With instruments and loud instruments.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Father Greg would sometimes speak to us after dinner, and he would tell them to lay off for, you know, take a break for an hour
Yeah.
and come back.
So they can get, yeah.
Talk, yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. Any other thoughts or questions that you could ask Donna? You know, we've said a lot about, you know, like the war and danger, and so sometimes some students might be fearful. Can you talk a little bit about what the conditions are now?
like when you go anywhere, I'm sure some of you were from Philadelphia. Anybody from Philadelphia? No? I guess everybody,
Is a suburban kid or?
when you go anywhere, you just need to use common sense. You know, I am convinced life is not worth living in fear, you know, but you need to use some common sense. Where you're gonna be, for the most part, you know, your professors are not taking you anywhere where you're gonna be in danger, you know. However, you always need to be a little street savvy. My suggestion is, for instance, I don't know what day you're going to teach, but whenever you're in a marketplace, you don't ever, ever, ever want to carry your important documents in an outside bag, okay, or all your money, because there are pickpockets. You know, you're not going to see them, but all the time. But you know, even in the airport, but any airport here in, you know, you have to be street savvy. So my suggestion always would be, anything valuable you wear on the inside, and then, of course, carry a purse or something, but don't have anything, have a little bit of money. So if somebody really wants to pickpocket you, grab it and they don't do you any harm. You know, but I would never, ever, ever carry my passport and other documents on an outside pocket even. In the market in Chi-Chi, I don't know if you're gonna be there market day, but it gets so crowded, and they're not the local people, they're people who come from the outside. Sometimes you're like at the crossroads, the market is huge, and you know, like if you have a camera, if you have anything sticking out of your pocket, or if you have a camera that's swinging on your shoulder, it may not be there, or guys, never, ever, ever use your back pocket. It's not the local people who do it, it's people who know, let's face it, they look at us and they know we're not from there, so they think, well, you're not from here, so you have to be carrying money. You know, so you just want to, you don't want to give people an opportunity to, you know, to rob you. So anything, I always wear travel vests or vests from Guatemala that have an inside pocket. But you just need to be street savvy. you know, but I don't think you need to be fearful.
We used to go over to Panajachel, which is a big tourist town,
Yeah.
and like tons of like Europeans
Yes.
and North Americans. And I felt more, you know, that was kind of like, and it's where a lot of drug use is over in Panajachel. So we stopped going there just because, you know, it did look like a little, so in San Lucas, basically, we don't go out at night, you know.
Right.
But during the daytime,
Oh,
it is like way in terms of safety.
you don't need to be afraid,
At all.
you know, it's always good to go 2 and 2 if you're, well, just, you know, just because you're in a foreign country, but,
And there might be guys looking up and
yeah.
down, you know.
you know, yeah, so I would always go, like, we don't let our students go alone. I go alone, because I go running and that alone, but, you know, I've lived there. But always 2 and 2 at least, just for common security. But you don't have to be afraid in San Lucas at all. They're used to people coming from, you know, universities from the States, and they expect to see you, and people are friendly. You know, so you don't need to be fearful of that. And Chicha, they're used to saying, you know, the people are friendly. It's, if you get into market day, you just, you know, and at the airport, it's an airport just like any airport. You just don't, you know, you just need to be a little street savvy, that's all.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Can we sing our little blessing song?
Yes, please.
You're gonna sing.
So, we always have these meetings, and Donna, as you can tell, is so artistic. She loves to dance. I am like panic-stricken about any dancing. So it's been her life goal to get me to dance. And so whenever I see her, I like, well, be a wallflower.
You wanna put a light on maybe, or? You know, maybe we can just, I was gonna say gather around, but there's not really a whole lot of space here. I'll come to the end of it, and we can gather as much as we can. I'm gonna invite you, afterwards, to take one of these woven bracelets. You could use them as a bracelet, you could use them as a bookmark or whatever, but just as a little reminder. They're from Guatemala, as a reminder, of the interconnection of people, planet, you as a group, the people there together. In some way, the group that I will be going with later, with you, it's all connected. So please feel free to take one. And also, I'm gonna leave this, it's a little card, which I just love the quote on it. And it says, you know, the world in which you were born is just one model of reality. Other cultures are not failed attempts at being you. They are unique manifestations of the human spirit. Sometimes, not you folks, because you've had a great base, but so many times, you know, we think from the US of A that we know it all and we're going to do and we're going to fix and all that. And sometimes, without even realizing it, kind of unconsciously, we go with that attitude, as if I'm going to try to make you like me, as if you want to be like me. When really it's a celebration of everyone's culture, you know, the culture we're going to walk into and around. So this is actually called, it's actually a song taken from a Guatemala folk song. And it's very easy. We could do it in English and then in Spanish. And it's really a blessing for all of us as you go off in, you know, just a couple days. And then as I go, as I go and continue to work with our group, and we go in May. And then there's another group from Marywood going in March as well. And so the song goes like this. The peace of the earth be with you, the peace of the heavens too. The peace of the rivers be with you, the peace of the oceans too. Peace, peace falling over you, God's peace flowing in you. Would you join me in singing that, and then we'll do the Spanish? It's easy. The Peace of the earth be with you, the peace of the heavens too. Peace of the rivers be with you, the peace of the oceans too. Peace, peace, falling over you. God's peace flowing in you. Paz de la tierra esté contigo, la paz de los cielos también. La paz de los ríos esté contigo, la paz de los mares también. Paz, paz cayendo sobre ti. Paz, paz creciendo en ti. Peace of the rivers, the peace of the oceans, the peace of earth, the peace of heaven. God's peace, heart of heaven, heart of earth, be with all of you on your journey.
Thank you.
Please take,